The moment Daniel saw the little boy, his heart nearly stopped. He had traveled over 800 miles on a whim, hoping to surprise the childhood best friend he hadn't seen in nearly 7 years. He expected laughter, old memories, and maybe a long conversation over coffee. What he didn't expect was a child staring back at him with the exact same gray-blue eyes, and the same crescent-shaped birthmark behind his left ear. Daniel froze in the doorway. The little boy stood in the living room holding a toy airplane. His dark hair was messy, and his curious eyes studied Daniel with innocent fascination. For a second, Daniel thought he was imagining things. Then the boy turned his head. The birthmark became visible. The room suddenly felt smaller. "Mom!" the child shouted happily. "Someone's here," a familiar voice answered from the kitchen. "I'm coming, sweetheart." Daniel's chest tightened. The voice belonged to Emily, his best friend, the girl who had once known every secret he ever had, the girl he had loved silently for years, the girl he believed had completely moved on. A moment later, Emily appeared. She stopped instantly when she saw him. The color drained from her face. "Daniel?" "Surprise," he said awkwardly. Neither of them smiled. For a few uncomfortable seconds, nobody spoke. Then the little boy ran toward Emily and wrapped his arms around her leg. "Mom, who's this?" Emily swallowed hard. Daniel noticed her hands trembling. Something wasn't right. "This is," she began, "my old friend." The answer felt incomplete. Daniel forced a smile and crouched beside the boy. "Hi there," the child grinned. "I'm Noah. Nice to meet you, Noah." The boy's smile widened. Something about it felt strangely familiar, painfully familiar. Emily quickly invited Daniel inside. The house was small but warm. Family photographs decorated the walls. Daniel's eyes drifted toward them. Most showed Emily and Noah together. At first glance, they looked like any happy mother and son. But the longer he looked, the more questions filled his mind. Noah appeared to be around 6 years old, almost 7. The same amount of time Daniel had been away. He shook the thought from his head. Coincidences happened. Birthmarks happened. Similar eyes happened. Yet something deep inside him refused to settle. Emily offered him coffee. He accepted. As she moved around the kitchen, Daniel watched her carefully. She seemed nervous, far more nervous than someone greeting an old friend. Meanwhile, Noah sat beside him asking endless questions. Children often did that. "Do you fly airplanes?" Noah asked. "No." "Are you rich?" Daniel laughed. "Definitely not," Noah giggled. The sound filled the room with warmth. Then he looked closely at Daniel. "My eyes are like yours." Daniel nearly dropped his coffee. Emily immediately turned around. "Sweetheart, but they are," the boy pointed. "See?" Daniel forced another smile. "Maybe a little." "No," Noah said confidently. "They're exactly the same." Silence followed. Emily looked away. The conversation shifted, but Daniel couldn't stop thinking about it. Hours passed. Old memories slowly resurfaced. They talked about school days, neighborhood adventures, and the dreams they once shared. For brief moments it felt like nothing had changed. But every time Daniel relaxed, he caught Emily watching Noah with concern, as though she feared something, as though she knew a secret she couldn't keep forever. That evening a thunderstorm rolled across town. Rain tapped softly against the windows. The electricity flickered. Noah climbed onto the couch beside Daniel. Without warning, he fell asleep against his shoulder. Daniel smiled. The boy seemed comfortable around him, strangely comfortable. Emily stood quietly nearby. Her eyes glistened. "What?" Daniel asked softly. She shook her head. "Nothing." But it clearly wasn't nothing. For several minutes they watched the rain together. Then Noah shifted in his sleep. His sleeve rolled upward. Daniel noticed a bracelet around the child's wrist, a small silver bracelet, one he recognized instantly. His stomach dropped. Years ago, before leaving town, Daniel had bought 2 matching bracelets at a local fair, one for himself, One for Emily, a symbol of friendship, a promise that no matter where life took them, they would always remain family. The bracelet on Noah's wrist was identical. Daniel slowly looked at Emily, her eyes filled with tears, and for the first time that day, she didn't look away. She simply whispered 4 words. There's something you need to know. Daniel's heart began pounding. Outside, thunder echoed through the night. Inside, a truth buried for nearly 7 years was finally preparing to surface. Daniel stared at Emily. The words hung in the air like the storm clouds outside. There's something you need to know. His pulse raced. Emily gently lifted the sleeping Noah from the couch and carried him to his bedroom. Daniel sat frozen, unable to move, unable to think clearly. Every question that had quietly formed throughout the day now rushed through his mind at once. The eyes, the birthmark, the bracelet, the timing. None of it felt like coincidence anymore. A few minutes later, Emily returned. She sat across from him at the kitchen table. For a long moment, neither spoke. Only the sound of rain filled the silence. Finally, Daniel broke it. Emily, his voice was barely above a whisper. Who is Noah's father? Emily closed her eyes. A tear slipped down her cheek. When she opened them again, he saw years of pain hiding behind them. I never wanted you to find out like this. Daniel's stomach tightened. What does that mean? Emily folded her hands together. You remember the night before you left? Of course he remembered. 7 years earlier, the town fair, the matching bracelets, the long walk by the lake, the conversation that lasted until sunrise, the night they finally admitted they cared about each other, not as friends, as something more, at least for a few hours. Daniel nodded slowly. Emily looked down. After you left, I found out I was pregnant. The room spun. Daniel felt as though all the air had disappeared. What? Emily's voice cracked. I was pregnant. Thunder rattled the windows. Daniel couldn't speak. He couldn't even process the words. Pregnant. 7 years ago. Noah. The realization crashed into him. His hands trembled. You're saying? Emily nodded. Tears rolled down her face. Yes. Daniel stood abruptly. The chair scraped across the floor. Noah is my son? Emily began crying openly. Yes. The answer shattered him. For years he had imagined countless versions of his future. None of them looked like this. A son. A child he never knew existed. A little boy sleeping down the hall. His little boy. Daniel turned away, trying to control his emotions. Shock. Confusion. Anger. Joy. Grief. Everything collided inside him at once. Why? He finally asked. His voice was broken. Why didn't you tell me? Emily wiped her tears. I tried. Daniel looked at her. She stood and walked toward a small cabinet. From inside, she removed a worn cardboard box. The edges were faded with age. She placed it on the table. Inside were dozens of letters. Every single one addressed to Daniel. He stared at them. I wrote to you, she said. Again and again. Daniel picked up one envelope. His old address was written on the front. An address he hadn't lived at for years. When I moved, he whispered. Emily nodded. I didn't know where you went. Daniel's heart sank. Years earlier, after losing his job, he had moved multiple times across different states. He had changed phone numbers, changed apartments, changed everything. He'd believed Emily simply stopped contacting him. Meanwhile, she had been desperately trying to find him. I searched online, she said quietly. I called people from school. Her voice shook. I even drove to your old apartment once. Daniel felt sick. I never knew. I know. More silence followed. The anger inside him slowly faded. What remained was heartbreak. 2 people separated by circumstances neither had created. Years lost. Moments gone forever. First words. First steps. Birthdays. School events. All missed. Daniel lowered his head. I wasn't there. Emily's eyes filled again. No. He felt tears burning behind his own eyes. I missed everything. Emily reached across the table. For the first time that night she took his hand. Daniel, he looked up. You didn't abandon us. The words struck deeply, because for years, without understanding why, he had carried a strange guilt, a feeling that he had failed someone. Now he finally understood. They sat together for a long time, neither knowing what to say. Then a small voice interrupted them. Mom, both turned. Noah stood in the hallway rubbing his eyes. His dinosaur pajamas were slightly twisted. The little boy looked half asleep. I heard talking. Emily smiled softly. It's late, sweetheart. But Noah's gaze was fixed on Daniel. He walked slowly into the kitchen. Then he asked the question neither adult was prepared for. Is he my dad? The room became completely silent. Emily's breath caught. Daniel felt his heart stop. Children always seemed to sense the truth before anyone else. Noah looked between them, waiting, hoping, unsure. Daniel saw fear in the boy's eyes, the fear of hearing the wrong answer. Emily knelt beside her son. Her voice trembled. Yes, sweetheart. Noah stared. For several seconds he didn't react. Then he looked at Daniel. Really? Daniel could barely speak. Really? The boy's eyes widened. What took you so long? The innocent question broke something inside Daniel. Years of regret crashed over him. His vision blurred with tears. He knelt in front of Noah. I didn't know. Noah studied his face carefully, as though searching for honesty. Finally he stepped forward and wrapped his arms around Daniel's neck. Daniel held him tightly. The embrace lasted only a few seconds, but it felt like recovering 7 lost years all at once. Behind them, Emily quietly cried, not from sadness, but from relief, because the secret she had carried alone for so long was finally gone. And for the first time in years, their family stood together in the same room. The next morning, Daniel woke up earlier than everyone else. For a few seconds, he forgot where he was. Then the memories of the previous night came rushing back. Noah was his son. The truth felt both beautiful and overwhelming. He walked into the kitchen and found himself staring out the window as the sun slowly rose over the neighborhood. His mind was filled with questions about the years he had missed and the future he never expected to have. A small pair of footsteps suddenly approached from behind. Dad? Daniel turned. Noah stood there holding a stuffed dinosaur. The word hit Daniel harder than anything else. Dad? Nobody had ever called him that before. Noah looked nervous. Can I call you that? Daniel felt emotion tighten his throat. If you want to. A smile spread across Noah's face. The boy ran forward and hugged him. Daniel hugged him back. For the first time in years, he felt like he was exactly where he belonged. The rest of the morning passed quickly. Emily prepared breakfast while Noah proudly showed Daniel every toy, drawing, and school project he owned. Daniel listened carefully to every story. He didn't want to miss a single detail. Each moment felt precious because he knew how many moments had already been lost. While Noah played in the backyard, Emily and Daniel sat on the porch. I still can't believe it, Daniel admitted. Emily smiled sadly. Neither can I. Daniel looked toward Noah. He seems like a great kid. He is. You did all this alone. Emily nodded. It wasn't always easy. Daniel saw exhaustion hidden behind her smile. For years she had carried responsibilities most people shared with a partner. She had worked extra shifts, skipped meals, sacrificed dreams, all to give Noah a good life. The realization filled Daniel with admiration. You must have been scared. Emily laughed softly. Terrified. They shared a quiet moment. Then Emily asked the question she had been avoiding. What happens now? Daniel looked at her. I don't know. The truth was complicated. His job was in another state. His apartment was hundreds of miles away. His entire life existed somewhere else. Yet his son was here. Every future he imagined suddenly seemed incomplete without Noah. Before either could continue, Noah came running toward them. "Dad, come see." Daniel instantly stood. The words still felt unbelievable. Noah grabbed his hand and pulled him toward a large oak tree. High among the branches sat a frightened orange kitten. "It's been stuck there all morning," Noah explained. Daniel looked up. The kitten meowed desperately. Several neighbors had gathered nearby, trying unsuccessfully to coax it down. Without hesitation, Daniel moved toward the tree. Emily frowned. "Daniel, be careful," he smiled. "I've climbed worse." A few minutes later, he carefully reached the frightened animal. The kitten trembled as he gently picked it up. Everyone below watched nervously. When Daniel finally climbed back down safely, applause erupted from the small crowd. Noah looked amazed. "You saved him." Daniel handed the kitten to a relieved elderly woman. The woman wiped tears from her eyes. "Thank you," Daniel smiled. "It was nothing." But Noah stared at him differently now. Not because he had rescued a kitten, because he had witnessed kindness. Because he had seen someone help without expecting anything in return. Later that afternoon, Noah asked if they could visit the local children's hospital. Emily explained that they occasionally volunteered there. Many young patients spent weeks away from home. Simple visits often brightened their day. Daniel agreed immediately. When they arrived, he watched Noah walk from room to room, sharing toys, books, and laughter with children he had never met. One little girl was recovering from surgery. She looked lonely and scared. Noah sat beside her and handed her his favorite dinosaur sticker. "You can keep it," he said. The girl's face lit up. Daniel felt tears threatening again. Where had Noah learned such compassion? Then he glanced at Emily. The answer was obvious. Hours later, as they prepared to leave, a nurse approached them. She smiled warmly. "Your son is special." Daniel looked at Noah. "I know." For the first time, he truly understood what he had missed. Not just birthdays and milestones. He had missed watching an extraordinary little human grow into someone kind, someone generous, someone who cared deeply about others. That evening, after dinner, Noah fell asleep on the couch. Emily covered him with a blanket. Daniel sat quietly beside them. The house felt peaceful, comfortable, like home. Then Emily handed him something. A photo album. Daniel opened it. Thousands of memories filled the pages. Noah's first smile, his first birthday, his first bicycle, his first day of school. Page after page of moments Daniel had never seen. As he turned each page, emotions overwhelmed him. Then he reached the final photograph, a recent picture of Noah. On the back, written in Emily's handwriting, were simple words, "Waiting for the day he meets his father." Daniel stared at the sentence, unable to speak. Across the room, Emily watched quietly. Years of hope had been hidden inside those words. Years of faith. Years of believing that somehow, someday, this moment would happen. Neither of them noticed that Noah was no longer asleep. The little boy opened his eyes, looked at both of them, and smiled, because for the first time in his life, he no longer felt like someone was missing. Following days passed faster than Daniel thought possible. Every morning he woke up determined to make up for lost time. He knew 7 years could never be recovered completely, but he wanted Noah to feel loved in every moment moving forward. Noah seemed determined to spend every second with him. If Daniel walked to the mailbox, Noah followed. If Daniel went to the grocery store, Noah insisted on coming. If Daniel sat down to read, Noah climbed beside him with a book of his own. One afternoon they visited a nearby park. Children laughed on swings while families gathered under the warm summer sun. Daniel pushed Noah on a swing for nearly an hour. "Higher," Noah shouted. "You sure?" "Much higher," Daniel laughed. "You're fearless." "No," Noah replied. "I just trust you." The words hit Daniel unexpectedly. Trust. A child who had only known him for a few days already trusted him completely. Daniel silently promised himself he would never break that trust. Later they sat near a small lake feeding ducks. Noah suddenly became quiet. That wasn't normal. The boy usually had endless questions. Daniel noticed the change. "What are you thinking about?" Noah stared at the water. "Are you leaving again?" The question immediately erased Daniel's smile. He looked at the boy. Noah kept his eyes on the lake. "I know you live far away." Daniel's heart sank. Children often understood more than adults realized. Noah had been happy since learning the truth. But beneath that happiness lived a fear. The fear of losing his father just as quickly as he had found him. Daniel carefully chose his words. "I have to go back for work." Noah's shoulders dropped. "But," the boy looked up. Daniel continued, "I'm trying to figure something out." "What?" Daniel smiled. "A way to stay." Hope immediately returned to Noah's face. That evening, Daniel called his company. The conversation lasted almost 2 hours. When it ended, he walked outside to clear his head. Emily joined him on the porch. "Bad news?" Daniel shook his head. "Maybe good news." She waited. "They offered me a remote position." Emily blinked. "You can work from here?" "Most of the time." For a moment neither spoke. The possibility felt enormous, life-changing. Then Emily smiled. A genuine smile Daniel hadn't seen in years. "That's incredible." Daniel nodded slowly. "It is." But his expression remained thoughtful. Emily noticed. "What is it?" Daniel looked toward the house where Noah slept peacefully. "I'm scared." She seemed surprised. "Of what?" "Being a father." Emily laughed softly. Daniel frowned. "I'm serious." "I know. 7 years is a long time." Emily nodded. "It is. What if I mess this up?" Emily placed a hand on his shoulder. "You care enough to worry about it." Daniel looked at her. "That means you'll probably do fine." The next morning, Noah's school held a family community day. Parents and children participated in games, activities, and charity projects. Daniel attended with Emily and Noah. At first he felt out of place. Most families had known each other for years. Many parents recognized one another immediately. Daniel was the newcomer, the stranger. Then something unexpected happened. During a volunteer activity, a teacher asked families to help renovate an old playground used by local children. Everyone received assignments: painting, cleaning, repairing equipment. Without hesitation, Daniel volunteered for the most difficult tasks. Hours passed. Under the hot afternoon sun, he worked alongside other parents fixing broken benches and damaged fences. Noah proudly watched him. Whenever someone needed help, Daniel stepped forward. When an elderly volunteer struggled to carry supplies, Daniel helped. When a single mother couldn't finish her section, Daniel assisted her too. Slowly the playground transformed. By evening it looked almost brand new. Children rushed toward it excitedly. Their laughter filled the air. A school principal approached Daniel. "Thank you," Daniel smiled. "It was a team effort." The principal shook his head. "You inspired the team." Nearby, Noah heard every word. His chest swelled with pride. For years he had wondered what kind of man his father was. Now he was beginning to discover the answer. That night, after returning home, Noah disappeared into his room. A few minutes later he returned carrying a folded piece of paper. "Dad." Daniel looked up. "I made something." He handed over the paper. Daniel unfolded it carefully. It was a drawing. 3 stick figures stood beneath a bright yellow sun. One figure was labeled MOM. Another was labeled Noah. The third was labeled DAD. Above them were simple words written in large, uneven letters. "My family." Daniel stared at the picture. His vision blurred. Noah looked nervous. "Do you like it?" Daniel couldn't answer immediately. The drawing represented something deeper than crayons and paper. It represented belonging. acceptance, love. Finally he nodded. I love it, Noah smiled. Daniel pulled him into a hug. The boy wrapped his arms tightly around him. Neither wanted to let go. Across the room, Emily quietly watched. Her eyes filled with tears again, not because of sadness, because for years she had dreamed of seeing this exact moment. The moment Noah would finally have the father he deserved, and the moment Daniel would realize he already had the family he never knew he was searching for. Later that night, after Noah had fallen asleep, Daniel carefully placed the drawing inside the photo album, among thousands of memories. But somehow this one felt different, because unlike the others, he had been there for it. And as he closed the album, he made a silent promise. There would be many more memories to come. The weeks that followed became some of the happiest Daniel had ever experienced. For the first time in years, life felt meaningful in a way success and money had never provided. His days were filled with school runs, homework sessions, soccer practice, and bedtime stories. Simple moments that many parents took for granted felt extraordinary to him. Every morning Noah waited by the front door before school. Every morning he asked the same question, "Are you coming back later?" And every morning Daniel gave the same answer, "Always." The word always quickly became Noah's favorite. One Saturday morning, Daniel found Noah sitting alone in the backyard. The boy looked unusually quiet. Instead of playing with his toys, he stared at the grass. Daniel sat beside him. "What's wrong?" Noah hesitated. Then he asked softly, "Why didn't other kids have to wait for their dads?" Daniel's heart tightened. The question carried years of hidden hurt. Children at school had fathers attending games, birthdays, and school events. Noah had watched those moments from a distance. Daniel took a deep breath. "I wish I had known about you sooner." Noah nodded. "I know." Daniel looked at him carefully. "Did it make you sad?" The boy shrugged. "A little." Then he smiled. "But you're here now." The simplicity of the answer nearly broke Daniel. Children often understood forgiveness better than adults. That afternoon Noah had a soccer match. It was an important one. The stands were packed with parents and families cheering loudly. Daniel sat beside Emily. Noah looked nervous before the game started. Then he spotted Daniel in the crowd. Immediately he smiled. Daniel raised a thumb. Noah nodded confidently. The game began. For most of the match, the score remained tied. Both teams played hard. Parents shouted encouragement from the sidelines. As the final minute approached, Noah suddenly gained possession of the ball. He sprinted toward the goal. One defender, then another. The crowd rose to its feet. Noah kicked. The ball sailed into the net. Goal. The stadium erupted. Children ran across the field cheering. Noah immediately searched the crowd. When he found Daniel, he pointed toward him. The gesture lasted only a second, but Daniel understood exactly what it meant. The boy wanted his father to share the moment. After the game, Noah ran directly into Daniel's arms. "We won. You were amazing." "No." Noah grinned. "We were amazing." Daniel laughed. The boy's joy was contagious. That evening they celebrated with pizza and ice cream. Everything seemed perfect. Until a knock came at the door. Emily answered. A man stood outside. Tall, well-dressed, confident. Daniel noticed the change in Emily's expression immediately. She wasn't happy to see him. The man smiled politely. "Hello, Emily." Noah appeared in the hallway. His face instantly changed. Unlike Emily, he didn't look uncomfortable. He looked confused. The man noticed Noah. "Hey, buddy." Daniel stood slowly. Something felt wrong. Emily sighed. "Daniel, this is Ryan." The name meant nothing to him, until Emily added, "He helped me raise Noah." Daniel froze. Ryan stepped inside. The atmosphere became tense immediately. Noah looked between the adults, unsure what was happening. Ryan eventually broke the silence. "I figured I'd meet him sooner or later." Daniel understood. For years, while he had been absent unknowingly, another man had stepped into Noah's life, not as a father, but as someone who cared. Someone who showed up. Someone who helped. And Daniel suddenly felt guilty for resenting him. Ryan sat down. His expression was calm. Before you misunderstand anything, I need you to know something. Daniel listened. Ryan smiled toward Noah. I never tried to replace you. The words surprised him. Ryan continued. When Emily was struggling, I helped because they needed support. Emily nodded quietly. Ryan looked at Daniel. I knew one day Noah's real father might appear. Daniel felt unexpected respect growing inside him. Many people would have been bitter, jealous, defensive. Ryan wasn't. He simply cared about Noah. The conversation lasted nearly an hour. By the end, Daniel learned that Ryan had spent years helping with repairs, school pickups, emergencies, and difficult situations. Not because he expected anything in return, but because he genuinely cared about the family. As Ryan prepared to leave, Noah ran after him. Will I still see you? Ryan smiled warmly. Of course. The boy hugged him. Daniel watched quietly. Then something unexpected happened. Ryan turned toward Daniel. For a moment neither spoke. Finally Ryan extended his hand. Take care of them. Daniel shook it firmly. I will. Ryan nodded. I know. After he left, silence filled the house. Noah eventually went to bed. Later that night, Daniel sat on the porch alone. He thought about everything Ryan had done, everything he himself had missed. The truth was difficult. Another man had helped carry responsibilities that should have belonged to him. Yet instead of feeling threatened, Daniel felt grateful, because Noah had never been alone. A few minutes later, Emily joined him. Neither spoke at first. Then Daniel smiled slightly. He's a good man. Emily nodded. Yes. Daniel looked up at the stars. He helped raise my son. Emily squeezed his hand gently. He loves Noah. Daniel smiled. So do I. For a long moment they sat together beneath the night sky, both understanding something important. Family wasn't defined only by blood. It was also defined by kindness, by sacrifice, by the people who showed up when needed most. And although Daniel had lost 7 years, he was beginning to realize something remarkable. His son's life had been filled with love the entire time. He simply hadn't known it yet. As autumn arrived, life settled into a comfortable rhythm. Daniel officially accepted the remote position and moved permanently to town. He rented a small house only a few minutes away from Emily and Noah. Although it wasn't large, Noah treated it like a palace. The first weekend after moving in, Noah arrived carrying 3 backpacks. Daniel laughed. What are all those? My stuff? All of it? No. Just the important things. The backpacks contained toy dinosaurs, comic books, soccer trophies, stuffed animals, crayons, and enough snacks to survive a month. Daniel shook his head, smiling. I think we're going to need a bigger house. Noah grinned. That's what I told Mom. For the first time in years, Daniel felt completely at peace. One evening, Noah's teacher called. At first, Daniel worried something was wrong. Instead, she invited him and Emily to a parent meeting. The next afternoon, they arrived at school. The teacher welcomed them warmly. I wanted to show you something. She opened a folder filled with student assignments. Most contained drawings, short essays, and classroom activities. Then she handed them one particular page. The assignment had asked students to write about their heroes. Daniel expected Noah to write about an athlete or a movie character. Instead, the essay began, My hero is my dad. Daniel froze. The teacher smiled. He insisted I read this to you. She handed over the paper. Daniel began reading. My dad showed up when he didn't even know I existed. He helps people. He rescued a kitten. He fixes things. He listens to me when I talk. He makes mistakes sometimes, but he always tells the truth. He says he can't get back lost time, but he tries every day. That's why he's my hero. Daniel couldn't finish the last sentence without tears filling his eyes. Beside him, Emily wiped her eyes too. The teacher quietly left them alone for a moment. Daniel stared at the page. Every missed year hurt, but knowing Noah still welcomed him into his life felt like a gift he could never earn. That night he carefully placed the essay inside the photo album, right beside Noah's drawing labeled, "My Family." A few weeks later, the town organized a charity fair to raise money for struggling families. Dozens of volunteers participated. Food stands lined the streets. Children played games. Local musicians performed. Noah eagerly volunteered with Daniel. Throughout the day they carried supplies, helped visitors, and collected donations. Near sunset, an elderly man suddenly collapsed near one of the booths. Panic spread through the crowd. Several people froze. Daniel immediately rushed forward. He stayed calm, checked the man's condition, and called emergency services while others gathered around. Emily helped keep the crowd back. Noah watched anxiously. Fortunately, paramedics arrived quickly. The elderly man recovered and was transported safely for treatment. As the ambulance drove away, his wife approached Daniel. Tears filled her eyes. "Thank you." Daniel shook his head. "I only helped." The woman squeezed his hand. Sometimes helping changes everything. The words stayed with him long after the fair ended. That evening Noah sat beside him on the porch. "You weren't scared?" Daniel thought for a moment. "A little. Then why did you do it?" "Because somebody needed help." Noah nodded thoughtfully. The answer seemed to make perfect sense to him. A few days later, something unexpected happened. Daniel received a phone call from his former company headquarters. The position he once dreamed about had become available. It came with a huge salary increase, a larger office, prestige, travel opportunities, everything he had worked toward for years. There was only one catch. He would have to move across the country. The offer left him stunned. Years earlier he would have accepted immediately, without hesitation. Now everything was different. That night he couldn't sleep. Part of him saw opportunity. Another part saw soccer games, school events, movie nights, and bedtime stories. The next morning Emily noticed his mood. "What happened?" Daniel explained. She listened quietly. When he finished, she asked only one question. "What do you want?" Daniel looked toward the backyard, where Noah was kicking a soccer ball. For several seconds he watched his son laughing, running, living. The answer became obvious. For years he had chased success. Now he understood the difference between making a living and building a life. A few hours later he called the company back. He thanked them sincerely. Then he declined the offer. When the call ended, he felt strangely relieved. That evening Noah asked if they could play soccer. As they stood in the yard together, Noah kicked the ball toward him. Daniel smiled. He knew he had made the right choice, because some opportunities only come once, and he had already missed 7 years of the most important one. As the sun began to set, Noah suddenly stopped playing. "Dad?" "Yeah," the boy smiled. "I'm glad you found us." Daniel felt emotion rise in his chest. He smiled back. "I'm glad I found you too." Neither realized that a much bigger surprise was about to enter their lives, one that would change everything once again. Winter arrived quietly. The streets filled with holiday lights, store windows sparkled with decorations, and families gathered for celebrations across town. For Daniel, this season felt different from any he had experienced before. For years, the holidays had been lonely. He had spent many of them working late, traveling for business, or sitting alone in apartments that never truly felt like home. Now everything had changed. Now he had Noah. One snowy afternoon, Noah came home from school carrying a sealed envelope. "Mom, Dad, this is for both of you." Emily opened it. Inside was a letter from Noah's school. The annual family appreciation ceremony was approaching. Each student would have the opportunity to honor the people who had made the biggest impact on their lives. Noah immediately smiled. I already know who I'm choosing. A week later, the school auditorium filled with families. Parents sat proudly beside grandparents, siblings, and friends. Daniel and Emily took their seats near the front. Noah waited backstage with the other children. When his name was finally called, he walked onto the stage carrying several sheets of paper. The audience applauded politely. Then Noah stepped up to the microphone. At first he seemed nervous, but after spotting Daniel and Emily in the crowd, he smiled. His confidence returned. My name is Noah. The room grew quiet. When I was younger, I used to think something was missing. Daniel felt his heart tighten. I had an amazing mom who worked harder than anyone I know. She took care of me every day and never gave up. Emily lowered her head as tears formed in her eyes. The audience applauded. Then Noah continued, and I had people who helped us when things were hard. His thoughts briefly turned toward Ryan. The audience listened carefully. But I always wondered about my dad. Daniel felt every word. For years Noah had carried questions no child should have to carry alone. Then Noah smiled. One day he showed up. Soft laughter spread through the audience. Noah looked directly at Daniel. He didn't know I existed. I didn't know him, but he stayed. Daniel's eyes filled with tears. He missed a lot of years, but every day he tries to make every moment count. Several parents in the audience quietly wiped their eyes. Noah continued, My mom taught me kindness. He looked toward Emily. My dad taught me that it's never too late to start doing the right thing. The room became completely silent. Then Noah unfolded the final page. His voice grew softer. People think families are perfect. Mine isn't perfect. He smiled. But it's full of love. By now, tears were running down Emily's face. Daniel wasn't doing much better. Noah took a deep breath. That's why I want to thank both of them. The audience erupted into applause. Many people stood. Then more joined. Within seconds, the entire auditorium was standing. A standing ovation. Not for a celebrity. Not for a famous athlete. But for a little boy who understood what truly mattered. After the ceremony ended, Noah ran off the stage and straight into Daniel's arms. Daniel lifted him high into the air. I'm proud of you. Noah smiled. I'm proud of you too. Nearby, Emily laughed through her tears. The three embraced together. For a moment, the crowded auditorium disappeared. Nothing else mattered. Months later, on a warm spring afternoon, they gathered at the same lake where Daniel and Emily had spent their final night together before he left town years ago. The water shimmered beneath the sunlight. Birds glided peacefully overhead. Noah skipped stones across the surface while Daniel and Emily sat nearby. So much has changed, Emily said softly. Daniel nodded. The funny part is that I thought I came here looking for an old friend. Emily smiled. And what did you find? Daniel watched Noah laughing near the shore. Then he looked at her. A family. At that exact moment, Noah ran toward them. Come on. You're missing everything. Daniel laughed. He stood and offered Emily his hand. She took it. Together they followed Noah toward the water. The future remained uncertain. Life would still bring challenges. Mistakes would still happen. But none of them faced those things alone anymore. Because sometimes the most important moments arrive when you least expect them. A surprise visit, a familiar pair of eyes, a tiny birthmark, and a truth that changes everything. As Noah raced ahead, Daniel realized something he would carry for the rest of his life. The greatest gift he had ever received wasn't finding the son he never knew existed. It was being given the chance to become the father that son deserved.